What's going on, everyone? Today we got the topic of Power Slap. Now, Power Slap is not a fairly new thing. It's kind of been going on for years. I remember seeing videos way back in the day, probably a few years back, of Russian guys doing it. I've seen, own leagues be created. I've seen people who have been crowned the Power Slap champion. So Power Slap has been a thing for quite a while now. But recently, Dana White and the UFC have kind of gone together and they've kind of created a whole organization called Power Slap. That's the name of the thing. And it's blowing up. Like, it's really blowing up on TikTok. It's really going crazy. The UFC is promoting it on their own Instagram page. So it's a new thing now, and we kind of have to deal with it at this point. So before I really kind of dive into the nuances involving Power Slap and what it really is as an organization, I kind of want to explain how it kind of works, so to speak. So it's kind of self-explanatory in a sense, where you basically have two dudes lining up together. One dude goes first. You typically buy a coin toss. They decide who goes first. And you slap a person. You get one slap. You gotta do it in like 30 seconds. It's really easy to understand. It's really sport. You can literally turn on your TV and watch it and understand right away. It's not something that's super like deep, like, NFL or NBA or any other major sports organization or promotion, whatever term you want to give it. So it's a very simple sport. Very simple sport. It's very entertaining, very barbaric. And at face value, when I first saw this, I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like, that's honestly insane. That dude just got KO'd out cold. It was pretty entertaining to watch. And I can see how somebody who would be scrolling through would find it funny. Generally find somebody funny, or enjoy watching somebody get KO'd. It's kind of a phenomenon that people don't typically see, especially in American society. We don't really see people get KO'd unless you're like a hardcore MMA fan like me. I typically watch MMA or UFC every weekend, every Saturday that's on. I'm pretty much watching the pay-per-view or the fight night cards that go on. I know most of the fighters, so I'm a hardcore fan, so I do like seeing people get KO'd out cold. I think it's very entertaining. I think it's very cool and very fun to watch somebody get knocked out. However, I think Power Slap kind of totes that line between what is acceptable and what really isn't. And what I mean by what isn't really acceptable is because a lot of times in MMA, like, you can defend yourself, like, you can prevent being KO'd in an MMA fight. You kind of really can't prevent being KO'd when it comes to Power Slap. You kind of just gotta like take it on the chin like a man. And if you get KO'd, you get KO'd. If you get knocked out, you get knocked out. It kind of is just like, you might as well just sit there and pray and hope you don't get KO'd by this dude who's, a lot bigger than you or the same weight as you, which the UFC has done a good job, or the Power Slap organization has done a good job of, creating weight classes and stuff like that, to where you're not having somebody who's twice as big as somebody, completely obliterated dude. So there are weight classes. It is cool, but it is blowing up. Like, it genuinely is blowing up on TikTok. Right now they have 15.2 million likes. It's only been here for 2 months. I'm seeing celebrities like Mark Wahlberg. I'm seeing Hasbulla on there. I'm even seeing the UFC refs and some of the UFC commentators such as Michael Bisping on there. So the UFC and Power Slap are kind of, I would say, together in a sense. I think the UFC is definitely promoting this and definitely trying to put some funds into this so that it can be a huge thing and a huge promotion. However, I don't think it's gonna last. I kind of hope it doesn't last for, some of these fighters' sakes, because let's be honest here. The main reason why I don't really like it is because these guys aren't getting paid much. They're getting paid, very little to basically have life-altering, life-changing damage. This damage is something that's, that can affect your relationships. Like, CTE is a huge thing. And these fighters are basically getting a free dose of CTE because money? I guess they need money. And so I'm thinking, okay, how much money are these guys getting paid? Like, how much money are these guys earning for winning a Power Slap fight? Or how much money are these guys getting just for participating in a Power Slap fight? And it's really not much. So former UFC middleweight Eric Spicely came out. I think that's how you say his name. Eric Spicely recently came out and said he was getting 2 for 2. Now, if you don't understand how MMA contracts, MMA payouts work, basically you get money to show up, and then if you win that, you get an extra bonus on top of it. So a fighter might be getting paid $10K to show up, but he gets a 10K bonus if he also wins. It's called 10 for 10. It's pretty simple, pretty easy to understand. So these fighters are actually getting paid $2,000 to show up and $2,000 if they win. So you can go in, get KO'd out cold, get slapped out cold, and only make $2,000, which to me it isn't worth it. It's not worth it at all. But to some people it might be. I can understand how $2,000 can be a lot of money for some people just to win. And if you win, you also advance on. You also can fight other people and also make more money. So I can see how some people would take their chances and really try to, maximize the money they can make from Power Slap. And Dana White has also come out basically defending the fact that this is where it's at. It's only 2 months old. It's a very young sport. So people are going to get paid less. And as it blows up, there'll be more money dumped into it to help pay the fighters. I think that's what he was meaning when he talks about the boxing undercards. There's a quote by him saying, this is how MMA started too. Boxing undercards make this kind of money still. Educate yourself before you open the yap. Honestly, I don't really like this. I don't really like this because it's different. Boxing is a big sport. Boxing is a very popular sport in America and all over the world. UFC is becoming one of the biggest sports in America and in the world too as well. And I understand that that this is also a competitive, sort of sport, but I think it's different. I think it's just entirely different when it comes to just sports in general. I don't really consider this a real sport. It's a sport, but it doesn't feel like one, if you know what I'm saying. It doesn't feel like a real sport. It just kind of feels like flip a coin and, if you get the slap first, it's a done deal. It's a wrap. You get free money. But it can also go on the opposite way of you. Now, there's been various UFC fighters who have come out, and even boxers coming out, that are really against the idea of Power Slap. We've had Sean O'Malley come out basically saying he refuses to watch it.
I could see maybe watching the TV series part of it, like The Ultimate Fighter, like them at the house, meeting them, seeing their backstories, but the actual, sport, whatever you want to call it, itself, I can't watch.
Well, they're defenseless.
For the most part, there's a lot of people who don't really like Power Slap, and me being one of them. But the thing about it that makes Power Slap so big is that people who just hop on TikTok, kids and people who just don't know about the sport, who aren't really into the sport, and I'm just like to see people get KO'd, and that's kind of the reality that we live in. And it's quite tough. It's really quite tough that people just, promote this thing without knowing the intricacies of what goes on behind the scenes and what these fighters can deal with when it comes to their, neurological, psychological, whatever you want to call it. It's a CTE farm. You can probably grow a farm of guys with CTE who just do Power Slap. I can really imagine in 30 years from now having a bunch of people just die who were in Power Slap just because of the neurological risk that there is. We even had a Greek neurologist come out. His name is Nicholas Evangelo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He even came out and said that this is a recipe for disaster. So a lot of this stuff is a negative light. If you ever go onto the Instagram page of the UFC, whenever they promote Power Slap, there's a lot of negative comments. A lot of stuff going on here of people just not liking it. Just generally not liking it. And it's crazy to me that Power Slap isn't doing anything about it. They don't really care. And the hardcore UFC fans, even the casual UFC fans, don't really care about Power Slap. They recognize it as bad and that it's something that's, harmful to people. And so why does it keep going? Why is it still a thing? Why is this thing still going on? Why do we still have Power Slap? And I guess I have to say, just social media. Social media is just a big thing in this. It plays a big factor. When you see UFC getting 15.2 million likes on TikTok, they're going to keep doing it. They're going to keep producing money. UFC is going to be like, wow, this is really blowing up. We have to pump some more money into Power Slap, man. Let's get some extra viewers. Let's not worry about our pay-per-view card. Let's not worry about our fight night card. Let's make that shit, but let's focus on Power Slap. And that's where I have an issue, is that there's some serious health risks going on, but no one really seems to care. No one really cares enough to say something about it. We have boxers, UFC fighters, even hardcore UFC fans talking about how this is a bad idea. Dana White, who even started the whole UFC, who was their main promoter for a long time, doesn't even care. He's kind of like, this is my thing. And it's crazy to me. It's just genuinely crazy to me. I don't know. What do we do in terms of Power Slap? I think there's really nothing we can do. Hopefully there can be. Um, Hopefully this the ratings start to tank. Hopefully this gets old. It's only been 2 months, you know. It's only been a few months of this thing being alive, and hopefully it just dies. Like, I'm just praying this just dies out and it won't be here in a few years. But it's just a very dumb sport. We kind of have to deal with it for now. I really don't even know what we're gonna do. In reality, man, I hope some of these fighters kind of just stop participating. Some of these fighters are realizing, hey, I have a family that I'm living with. I have a bunch of people that, my kids are scared. They're seeing daddy get knocked out cold, and my dad might die when I was being rushed to the hospital. And it's crazy. Now, I do think that this is something that the UFC and Power Slap are kind of acknowledging, that this can be a very dangerous sport, especially to a lot of these fighters. And so they are, taking steps to where if somebody gets KO'd, they can't participate for a certain amount of time. There's fighters or slap participants, I don't know what really they call them. They are getting, a medical suspension from participating again. But it's just so weird watching these guys get dropped. I mean, they're getting dropped. They're holding on to this bar, trying to stand back up. And it just takes a lot out of them. And it's like out of their brain. And I won't be surprised, man. I really genuinely will not be surprised if people come out, have really bad brain damage, have really severe brain damage. It's just crazy to me. And also, like, you can also commit a foul, still take a fucking punch. So it's basically what it is. You can also commit like a foul in your slap, like you can't move your feet, or you can't lead with your palm, or whatever the rules are, and you can get completely KO'd and then get called a foul. So this guy basically just cheated, but still KO'd you. That's the worst part. If somebody cheats at MMA, there's a point taken away. They change positions. There's punishments that don't really resolve in KOs, or there's like a no contest. It doesn't really result in somebody getting knocked out cold or rocked severely. I mean, headbutts happen sometimes, but most of the times headbutts don't really rock people. They might cut them open. They don't really ever rock people. But I don't know. Power slap is something that's really bad. I think it's bad to be putting on TikTok. People don't really care enough on TikTok and stuff like that. But it is what it is. I can't really fight too much about it. Hopefully it dies out, and I can put my hands up and be like, what? But hopefully this thing dies. Hopefully it goes away. But it is what it is. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like down below. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. And follow me on Twitch. I'm live Sunday through Thursday, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. 9 p.m. I don't know what time it is. But make sure to check me out on Twitch. I'm there live. Peace out.